take sides, forming factions, which take positions that they believe are consistent with the interests of those in their constituency. These emerging factions are looking for victories, for evidence that their group is in the ascendancy, that they have more power or control than the other or the others. This is the level of conflict that Paul seems to describe in Philippians chapter 1, verses 15 through 18. One of the chief issues at level 3 is a distorted perception of the opponent or opponents. This issue comes in many flavors, and Lees identifies some of the more prevalent. His descriptions are worth quoting here. He talks about magnification, the tendency to see oneself as more benevolent than one actually is, and the other as more evil than she or he actually is. Lees describes dichotomization, the tendency to divide everything into neat, dual but separate packages, us versus them, right and wrong, stay or leave, fight or flee. When one is dichotomizing, it is almost impossible to see shades between the extremes, or to find more than two alternatives when making choices. Lees talks about overgeneralization. In level 2, there is a tendency to see specific behavior as an example of a category of events or attitudes: trust, friendliness, communication, etc. In level 3, generalization takes on an out-of-control and almost pernicious quality. You'll hear people saying things like, "you always," "he never," "everybody." Lees talks about the tendency toward assumption. At level 3, the contestants delude themselves to believe that they are excellent mind readers, students of their opposition's subtlest moments. In fact, they often believe they know the other's mind better than he or she does. "You're just trying to wreck the church," you might hear. Note that this statement not only describes, perhaps wrongly, the consequences of the other's behavior, but purports to be keen-sighted insight into the reasons for that behavior. When the conflict reaches level 3, reconciliation becomes more difficult. If the object is to win, then making peace seems to be beside the point. The fourth level of conflict is fight or flight. Lee's description is stark and frightening. At level 4, the objectives of the parties to a conflict change from winning to hurting and or getting rid of the other. In a local church, this behavior is differentiated from level 3 behavior in that changing the other or the situation is no longer enough. In fact, the parties do not believe that the other can or will change. Therefore, they believe that the only option open to them is the elimination of the other from their environment. Examples of level 4 conflict include attempts to get the pastor fired, trying to get those with whom one doesn't agree to leave the church, and attempting to get people to join oneself in leaving. At this level, conflictors want to expel one another. Being right trumps being in relationship. The desire to punish the offender becomes the goal of each party in the conflict. Lees writes, subgroup cohesiveness becomes more important than the health of the total organization. Level 4 church conflict is church conflict as blood sport. It is church life as professional wrestling or soap opera. Lee says the reason that I have designated level 4 conflict as fight or flight is that it brings out the most primitive survival responses in both defendants and proponents. There seems to be no middle ground between running or attacking, and the attacks are on persons, which the attacker cannot differentiate from the ideas proposed or defended. Lees calls the 5th level intractable. At this level, the conflict is essentially unmanageable. The parties will no longer be satisfied with victory. The factions will no longer settle for expelling one another. There is the desire to destroy the other person or the other side. One of the most common elements of a church conflict is the practice of scapegoating. This practice typically begins to appear in level 3 and is often the outcome of a level 5 church conflict. The label refers to an ancient Hebrew practice described in Leviticus chapter 16 verses 20 through 22. When he had finished atoning for the holy place and the tent of meeting and the altar, he shall present the live goat. Then Aaron shall lay both his hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the iniquities of the people of Israel and all their transgressions, all their sins, putting them on the head of the goat and sending it away into the wilderness by means of someone designated for the task. The goat shall bear on itself all their iniquities to a barren region, and the goat shall be set free in the wilderness. A conflicted congregation or a group of conflictors in the congregation may focus on an individual or a small group of people. Others may saddle the scapegoat with all the ills, all the blame, all the pain of the whole community. Then the congregation sends the scapegoat off into some wilderness. For a while, the community may feel a sense of relief. However, this is a short-term solution at best, and it is unworthy of those who follow Jesus Christ. In many conflicted congregations, some people will identify the pastor or another staff person as the scapegoat. Some may think it is quite simple to remove a pastor and watch all the troubles walk out the door. However, when a community carries out such an action, that congregation will be damaged for generations to come. In fact, such scapegoating can become a habit. It may be a practice transferred from one generation to the next like an inheritance. Later generations may not even know why it's important to ask a pastor to leave every so often. They just know that it must be done. There may be some times when such a parting of the ways is a tragic necessity. Sometimes there is a poor fit between a pastor and a congregation. However, more often this is a